the happiest politician in America last week had to be Terry McAuliffe, who we all fondly remember as Bill Clinton's fundraiser.
Yes.
And he had his own fundraiser last week at which two presidents appeared, current President Barack Obama and former President Bill Clinton. And the former president decided this was the occasion to make an argument for Barack Obama's economic policies. He said, Mr. Obama is way ahead of history in pulling us out of this recession. The problem is most people still think we're in a recession.
Right.
So this requires a little bit of explanation.
Well, yeah, he was basically saying that if you look at the last 500 years of financial crises, that you really couldn't expect much better than what we're getting now. I mean, in some ways, I don't know if this was that complimentary of Mr. Obama, because it was sort of saying this is roughly what you would expect, and maybe it's mediocre, but could be worse. Now, you might wonder, how well does Bill Clinton know 500 years of financial history? Does he really know the 1600s financial crises that well?
From?
It's coming from a book from Carmen Reinhardt and Ken Rogoff, two economists, wrote a book called This Time is Different, and it actually goes back 800 years. And you know, they've probably studied it a little more closely than Bill Clinton, but even then you do ask, you know, how well do you know every century that you're surveying? But here's the point. Often you do have slow recoveries after a financial crisis. Now, a lot of academics, what they look at recently is Japan in the 1990s, the US in the 1930s, but what you also see is a very high correlation with stupid mistakes by government during those periods. So I'm not sure it's such a great history to lean on.
Yeah, I guess the sort of issue here that they just as soon not talk about, I mean, you know, economists look at events retrospectively, so fine, I'm glad they've got the time to do that. The issue here is what you do after the recession has ended, and this recession officially ended in early 2009. But we've had a series of policies put in place by the Obama administration, right? And the question is, helping or hurting?
Yeah, no, and it's a great question, because you look at it's similar to the 1930s in some ways, where things actually got better after 1933, but then things went downhill again in 37, and you wonder about the impact of policies. The question for Mr. Obama is, look, this economy was growing at almost 4% end of 2009, first half of 2010. What happened? What is the policy drag on the economy since then? Since we were getting a rebound, we were getting more robust growth, and it went off the tracks.
Well, what are a few of the policies you'd cite as having had an effect on the kind of growth we're getting?
Well, it is funny that the good growth roughly stopped with the enactment of Obamacare. You know, I don't know whether you could say that was the big wet blanket on business expectation and optimism. I think you look at other things as well. Dodd-Frank financial reform passed in 2010. Not a growth driver. You'd also look at, as you think about when do we get a rebound, we've had these umpteen housing programs all intended to prevent inevitable losses. And I think you have to, it's a reasonable question to say, if we had just allowed markets to run, would we now be in a much better place, maybe with some more pain than we've experienced on the housing side, but with a stronger recovery?
Well, I suppose if nothing else, President Clinton's remarks suggest that indeed the economy and the recession remains a huge re-election problem for the president.
It is, and this recurring theme of it could have been worse that's a rough campaign slogan. I think they're trying out different ways to say that. And Bill Clinton, great rhetorician, he's kind of come up with a neat way, which is, well, looking back 500 years, you know, this is roughly what you'd expect.
Yeah.
But you know, Americans tend to expect excellence, and that's what certainly what Obama promised in terms of the stimulus results, and we haven't seen them.
Yeah, at best, I think in the age we live in, Americans are looking about 500 hours ahead, not 500 years.
Yeah, that's probably right.